I feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule!
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. We're just a couple of comics here in Tucson who love talking sports, watching sports, all of that. Back on the hardwood today with somebody that almost didn't make it to that NBA. Who we talking?
Today we've got point guard of post Showtime, Nick Van Exel, everybody. And boy, was this an interesting research.
Nick the Quick.
Nick the Quick. Nicky Maxwell Van Exel, born November 27th, 1971 in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Very segregated community, small town, not much to offer. The only child of Joyce and Nick Sr. And, well, his dad wasn't a very positive role model growing up.
He had a pretty bad dad.
I don't even think bad qualifies. I don't even think deadbeat qualifies. Just awful.
Yes.
So when he was young, he would spend actually a lot of time with his dad, who was a great basketball player. It's kind of how Nick developed into a great basketball player. He'd go and watch him play in local pickup games. And when the games were over, his dad would like to go into other people's cars and steal stereos. Nick, be in the lookout.
It's such a ridiculous story. I remember seeing that where he was just like, yeah, I mean, after the games, my dad would just kind of like go and if your door was open, then your stereo was ours.
Some call it larceny. I call it father-son bonding.
It's true.
I mean, reminds me of a South Philly tradition where you just go into other people's houses and take their gifts.
That's right. And then you have to run out of there.
Yeah. You have to run with the robot! That's all I thought of when I read that. Is his dad Mac's dad?
Oh, for sure.
The man doesn't. Mr. Van Exel doesn't blink, Mom. He doesn't blink. So at age 7, because of this criminal activity, his dad goes to jail. His mom, however, she is a badass. She steps up and realizes, I have to raise my son by myself. Starts working at the Chrysler plant. Problem is, she's working second shift, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m., so literally she's setting everything up to help Nick, but she's never seeing him.
I was going to say, so he has a ton of time by himself and on the court.
Yeah.
That's literally what you see with him post-school. He didn't have anybody really at home to take care of him, so obviously he's going to be out in the street.
Out in the street, getting into trouble, playing basketball. That's pretty much his childhood. Became a loner, kind of pretty depressed. One thing I also read, which just... His dad, just a very terrible man. Just very terrible. When his dad got out of jail, he moved to Atlanta. Didn't even bother sticking around. Compounding the sadness, multiple times he called Nick and told him there was a ticket waiting for him at the Milwaukee airport.
And when he would get there, they'd be like, there's no ticket for you.
Fake out! This is it's the most Frank Reynolds of moves.
Oh, I invented the fake out.
Like, that's the Countach or the purse with the cheesy loops and malted milk. What a jackass! Like, how could you... And because of this, Nick not only has issues with trusting people,
yes,
totally validated, but also has huge issues with older male role model authority figures.
Yes.
Completely understandable, but probably should have got some help for it, but, like, this is where it all comes from.
It's not one time.
No.
I really want to emphasize that. It's multiple times over a really young kid's life.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fucked up.
So he tried to walk the straight and narrow without a male role model. One of his friends' dad was his youth coach to kind of get him on a good path. But still getting into trouble. Started driving at 14, couldn't see over the steering wheel. And then at 16, he went for a joyride in his Aunt Wanda's car, fell asleep at the wheel, hit a tree, 70 stitches above his chin.
Yep.
Said he would buy her a new car one day, and he actually did once he makes the league. So good on you, Nick. Way to repay.
But once he becomes a junior, senior in high school, that's when you really start to see what an amazing basketball player.
Oh, God, was he fantastic.
It really shows at this point. He actually lost back-to-back state championships, which is so disheartening.
But just like, he's kind of on the smaller side. He's only about 6'1", 180, but he's so crafty, smooth, quick, and he's got a good outside shot.
And he has huge hands. That
Yes,
was
he
something
does.
that ladies, I'm just telling you.
Well, I mean, huge hands, you know what they say about that.
Great basketball player.
Huge sneakers.
Oh, okay. But it's one of those things that you see later on where he can palm the ball with effortlessly.
Great passer, too.
Yes.
He is that point guard that you want during this era.
Yep.
And like I said before, he has a good outside shot. He's a good shooter.
Because I'm going to bring this up probably later again, but they were talking about him on the Lakers, and they were like, yeah, he's not the best penetrating point guard, but he gets in there every time because everyone's afraid of his 3-point shot, so you literally have to play right up on him.
And he's tough.
He's so tough.
Very tough. Oddly enough, he started wearing his dad's number 31, which, oh boy. But AP All-State Wisconsin as a senior, you would figure he'd be a top recruit for all the Big Ten schools. You'd think everyone would want him, and they did.
And they did. But
unfortunately, I don't think he ever went to. His grades were dog shit.
His grades were I saw somewhere they were like, I mean, he almost didn't graduate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how bad his grades were.
So he's got to go to community college, and I saw an interview with him and his mom, and they both mentioned how he wanted to get away from Kenosha.
Yeah.
Which I get, even though John Candy and the Kenosha Kickers are there. I get it. Polka, I get it. Mm-hmm. But to Texas?
I know, it's weird.
I don't know. And probably spends the worst 2 years of his life at Trinity Valley Community College in Central Texas. And oh boy.
Well, I'll say
he almost does not. This is a juncture of his life where we might not even be talking about him making the NBA because of the crap that went on here.
I'll say this. He has a bunch of bad stuff that you'll get into, but he actually improves his grades enough to go on, which is it's such a weird.
And I'll bring that up later because of it's the time frame that he has to do it in,
yes.
Which is ridiculous. So a lot of controversy there, and Nick's got a temper on him. And we'll keep talking about this, but in the spring of 1990, two of his teammates stole clothes and personal items from a teammate, Jason Roberts, while Van Exel was the lookout.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his teammates were confronted by Roberts, and apparently those items were magically showed back up later on those doorsteps. Van Exel explained it was basically guys just acting immature, being away from home, guys just doing the wrong thing. And, I did a lot of crazy shit when I was away from home the first time. None of them were criminal.
No.
None of them were being that dickish.
And also stealing from your teammates. It's such a weird college kid thing to do.
This led to a huge fight with Roberts in 1991 where Van Exel and Roberts were supposed to fight, but another teammate basically went full Caddyshack and took Roberts down before the fight started.
Yep.
Van Exel kicked Roberts in the face while he was down, and they sent him to the hospital.
And then, did you hear what he said? He looked at him and he goes, "Pick up that blood."
Oh, God. You owe me one gumball machine, Roberts.
That's right.
So Van Exel... Roberts said he kicked him multiple times. Van Exel said, "I kicked him one good time. When you're fighting, you're fighting." Apparently, he even pounded his head into the ground multiple times, but no charges were filed by Roberts because at the time he did not say who did what.
Yes. So it was a very I got beat up, but I'm not talking to any.
I got hit by a bus.
That's right.
It wasn't just his teammates he had issues with. There was a lady friend there, Kim Waits. She said Van Exel was physical with her. And Van Exel's defense was, and I quote from Sports Illustrated, "As far as ever throwing any punches at her, choking, I can take a lie detector test on that. I'm pretty sure on that. If I did it, I definitely don't remember."
Well,
that's an ironclad defense if I've ever heard it. Chris.
I'll say this. He's never hit a woman, but he's shaking the shit out of some of them.
God damn it. He allegedly grabbed her by the throat, threw her on the bed until a teammate intervened. Why? He suspected her cheating. He wasn't going to class. Why not do some detective work? I'm majoring in criminology. You're not getting credit for this. You're just stalking this woman.
You're majoring in criminology? What are you trying to be, Batman?
Of course he's just in. Imagine being in Central Texas seeing just this bald guy in a Batman's costume with binoculars just around a dorm at a community college. His biggest issue, though, with her was she was talking to a lot of white guys.
Yeah.
So... Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Despite all his mistakes, and Lord knows on this podcast how we've highlighted guys who get extra chances due to talent, he takes advantage in his last semester.
That's what I wanted to bring up.
He earns 32 credits over that point in the summer where he's living in the gym. Like Rudy, only he's good, not like Rudy.
And I feel like this is that kind of era where it's just like, no, we're going to give you the grades. I'm not saying that's what happened, but Mr. Kaliki Alali will speak on that because we can't be suspending the flying Hawaiian. That's crazy.
My wife's Polynesian.
Ooh. So he really, in this small one semester, essentially has his grades good enough to where he could go to a college or whatever, real college.
C3, hey Jay, propane. So anyway, enter the University of Cincinnati.
Yep.
And he's a perfect fit under the because he's a very competitive guy.
Extremely competitive.
Crazy competitive coach, Bob Huggins. And I'm not going to lie about Bob Huggins. The older that man has got, the more he's morphed into looking like Mrs. Doubtfire. Do it. Go home right now. Google Bob Huggins. Put it side by side, Mrs. Doubtfire. Perfect match.
Hello.
It was a run by fruiting, Mr. Van Exel.
That's true.
So anyway, he enters a pretty good Cincinnati team, though.
They were 18-12 the year before he came in, but he was like that final piece.
He's the missing piece
in that in those teams that make them literally like contenders.
So 91-92, they win 29 games. They win the Great Midwest Conference regular season and tournament titles. Finished 12th in the Associated Press. And Van Exel has a good season his first year at D1. It kind of sucked. I mean, God, if his grades were good, he would have gone
for like literally
all of the Big Ten would have like recruited him like full ride.
I'll say this, I thought it was interesting. I thought his assists were low for him in this era. So he has 12 points and he has 2.9 assists in this first year, which they were killing it, but like the assist for your point guard is slightly low.
But I think they were passing the ball around a lot just as a team, so it's not like it runs
through him. Yeah.
They come alive in the NCAA tournament, and this is where he makes a name for himself. Because you're like, where? It's like the Vern Lundquist. Who the hell is Nick Van Exel?
Yeah, seriously.
They beat Delaware, Michigan State, and UTEP. And then in the Elite Eight, they destroy Memphis by 31.
Which a lot of people thought Memphis was going. They were the better team before.
Penny Hardaway is on this Memphis team. They make the Final Four in the Twin Cities, and they take the Fab Five to the limit.
I was going to say
the national semifinal.
They're playing Michigan against this unbelievable Fab Five, and they almost beat them.
They only lost 76-72, and now he's on the NBA's radar.
Yes.
He's not leaving early, but it's like this is going to be a lottery pick come 1993. So I did learn researching. His dad called him after he made the Final Four because we all know how these fathers work.
And he said, I got a ticket for you.
I got a ticket, Nick. Fake out.
It's at the airport.
And apparently Nick had talked about this. He said when his dad called, he was watching a program about abandoned children, which is like the worst kind of irony. So he invited his dad out to meet him and eventually tried to build a relationship, but he just could never get over the trust. And I don't blame him.
No.
One bit.
No, not even a tiny bit. I'll commend him for trying to like do that, but there's some point where you're just like, oh, you're just a horrible person.
I'll commend him for even speaking to him.
Exactly.
Again.
Exactly.
You know, like that even takes a lot after all that disappointment.
Yep.
Never got that Countach, Chris. 92-93, Cincinnati, basically almost an identical record. They're 27-5.
Yep.
They win the Great Midwest regular season and tournament championships. Finished 7th in the Associated Press. Led the team in scoring with over 18 a game.
This is what I mean, where this is when he really shows what a great scorer he is. When in the senior year he averages 18 points a game on a really good team. And they go back to the NCAA tourney, but
he was a finalist for the Wooden Award. I didn't want to bring up first team All Great Midwest and a third team All American for a dude that he just squeaked by like Spicoli out of Trinity Valley.
He's very true.
All I need are some tasty waves, a cool buzz, and some assists, and I'm fine. So they're a number 2 seed. He did finish as the school's leader in 3-point field goals made, attempted, and percentage.
In 2 years.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, 2 years. Everybody else is playing 4.
Cincinnati has a storied history as a basketball program.
Yeah.
It's not like he's doing this at some ridiculous school. They roll through Coppin State, New Mexico State, and Virginia, and then they have an Elite 8 matchup against North Carolina.
Yep.
Take them to overtime, but end up losing 75-68, which is a shame. North Carolina that year won the national championship.
I know. That's crazy.
I did want to bring up he eventually graduated just last year.
Yeah, I saw. So he didn't technically graduate. Gets drafted.
Well, let's talk about the draft process. I don't know. So this is the stuff I was looking into. On one hand, I can see where he's coming from, but on the other, it's like, bro, this is your job. Mm-hmm. So going into the 93 draft, everyone was assuming he would be a lottery pick.
Yeah.
That was the big talk. He would be a lottery pick. Outside of Penny Hardaway, he's the number 2 point guard on the entire board.
Exactly.
The pre-draft process, though, for him, so much self-inflicted horseshit on himself.
Well, it's one of those things where you see why they meet with players so much, because like coaches, GMs would meet with him and they'd be like, oh, I don't want this guy on my team.
Yeah, so he missed 2 flights to Charlotte. One of them, he claims there was a time mix-up. Another, a friend was in a car wreck, which I can understand. Mm-hmm. But it was the workouts and the interviews with teams that just torpedoed his stock.
Because, and this is throughout his career, is workouts and we're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice.
He didn't give 100%.
No.
It just wasn't.
It wasn't a game, Chris.
Exactly.
Most notably, it was Seattle, and it was head coach George Karl. Karl said it was the worst interview we've ever had with a player, bar none. Apparently, Van Exel talked crap about Dean Smith. Karl was a UNC alum who played for Dean Smith.
Yeah.
They lost to obviously the loss in the Elite Eight stung him, and he said Dean Smith should have won more with the quality of players. Karl responded, "What makes you an expert on coaching?" And later, Van Exel showed up with a Duke hat on, which is nice, which is some good trolling. But
some good trolling.
Here comes the workouts. There's a 300-yard shuttle that they make the players do for agility. 50 to 55 seconds is a normal time for a point guard. The first time he ran it, Van Exel ran a minute 8. Karl said Karl called him a real asshole. But he told him, if you run a 55-seconder, I won't tell other teams what you did.
Yeah.
What you said, I won't tell anybody about it. Van Exel then replied, this second one's going to be a cool down. He ran it he ran it even slower in 1:20. Like, for trolling purposes, you're a genius, but you probably lost tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There's a time to be an asshole and there's a time not to be.
Well, the second one, when he went out, he was just like, I look like a beautiful gazelle out here. Should have popped that shirt off. What was I thinking?
And then the ball hit him in the back of the head.
Yeah.
So he fell hard in the draft.
Ridiculously low, especially for a point guard, which is what teams want.
You know what I read? Karl tried to trade up for him.
Really?
Which begs for how hard that he fell, which begs the question, what are you going to do with Gary Payton?
Yeah, no shit.
But anyway, I read that in the SI article. So not only does he fall out of the lottery, he falls out of the first round completely because of this behavior. Not because he's not talented.
No. He has all the talent that you want for a point guard, but it's somebody that you just don't want in your locker room. Like they were saying, like he just doesn't try as hard as you want him to.
Yeah. Like he doesn't even give the impression
of
that
trying.
He gives.
Yeah.
Even though he's trying, it's like sometimes you need to show people that you give a shit.
Yeah.
To inspire hope, Chris.
Now, in games, he's unbelievably competitive and gives like 110, whatever you want to say. But there's something about that when they show up to practice and they're just kind of like, I don't give a shit.
But then in practice, he separates entirely.
That's true.
So we go down to 37 overall, and the Los Angeles Lakers take him.
And luck out.
They luck out because you got to bring Showtime back to the Lakers. Worthy's gone. Magic coming back out. Has the other kind of disease.
There you go.
And yeah, you need to bring it back.
You have to have a point guard. They don't have a point guard, so it's him and Eddie Jones,
who was replaced by someone we'll talk about later. But those two guys were so good on those Lakers teams.
They were good.
These were fun teams. Like, everyone associates with the Lakers with a couple of guys we'll talk about later who didn't like Nick very much. But these Lakers teams with him and Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones was an assassin back in the day. He was beloved by Jerry West. Called him one of his favorite Lakers, actually. And Nick would say, Jerry would tell you how it is, and he went to bat for me.
Yeah.
He went to bat for him a lot until something happens.
Yep.
So 93-94, they missed the postseason, but Nick is a second-team All-Rookie, which probably would have been if he went in the lottery, But he's a starter point guard out the gate.
And, this is like we were saying, this is right after Showtime. This is the first time that the Lakers actually don't make the playoffs in 40 years, whatever you want to say.
It's just him and Vlade Divac smoking cigarettes.
Yep, Vlade Dottie is out there. But you see that they have the pieces in place to actually be a good team.
Yeah. So that rookie season, 13.6 points a game, 5.8 assists. 94-95, they're vastly improved.
Yep.
16.9 points a game, 8.3 assists, career highs in field goal percentage and steals per game. First round, they beat the Sonics and George Karl, which had to be kind of sweet.
Oh, my God, that had to feel good.
Probably wore a Duke hat in the post-game press conference. Then they play San Antonio. They lose in 6. But in Game 5, he had a three-pointer to send the game to OT and win to stave off elimination.
Yep.
This was his best postseason ever, too. He had career highs in points per game with 20, assists per game with 7.3, and steals per game with 2.1. 95-96 is a bit of a tough season for him, though. Not necessarily as far as productivity. Averages almost 15 a game and almost 7 assists. He misses the last 7 regular season games.
He has a bit of an attitude problem out there. They're playing the Spurs.
Nuggets.
Oh, Nuggets.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
April
Nuggets.
9th, 1996. He's called for a foul in the game. Referee Ron Gerritsen tees him up.
And he
called Van Exel a smart ass. Mm-hmm. To which Van Exel replied, "You're a little midget." And what does Gerritsen do?
Eject him.
Tees him up a second time.
And then Van Exel does not like that, so he confronts him and pushes him a little bit.
Well, he gives him kind of a forearm.
Yeah, it's a forearm shiver for sure.
I mean, this guy was like 5'6",
and if you see it, he literally pushes him up onto the announcer's table, where you're like, "Oh, damn, that would have knocked him square over."
Oh yeah, like it was a bad look. It's a bad look for Nick. It's a bad look for the Lakers.
Yep.
It's a bad look for the NBA.
Yep.
Fined $187,000, and they lose to Houston in 4 games. And at this point, the Lakers realize we need to retool a little bit. Nick and Eddie can stay, but we got to, move some pieces. We got to get some front court help, maybe a little bit of youth in the back court this offseason.
So they go out, they get
96-97.
One Shaquille O'Neal, in which we're still waiting to hear back.
Shaq, just let us know. We're not going to make fun of you. I just want to know. I just want to know.
And then they pick up a 18-year-old Kobe Bryant.
A future helicopter enthusiast, Kobe Bryant. Colorado tourist Kobe Bryant as well.
There you go. I did see Kobe talking about Nick Van Exel, where he was just like, who was the first NBA player to like really bust your ass? And he was like, first Lakers practice. He played harder than I've ever seen him play in a practice against me. And he was talking about it. He was just like, it was like a week before I realized he couldn't go left. Yeah. It's such a funny thing that you don't think about. Or no, he could only go left. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because he's
he could only go left. And then Kobe said he was just like, and then I had him in practice every other time. And he was just like, all right.
Oh, God. That year, he over 15 points a game, over 8 assists. Had a career-high 23 assists on January 5th against Vancouver. But the scorekeeper was mad at the inflated total. I don't know if you saw anything about that. Lakers make the playoffs, though. They're in this Shaq and Kobe rebuilding era.
That's right. And this is where, because Eddie Jones is still the shooting guard.
Kobe's coming off the bench.
Kobe's starting to.
I think part of that's why he gave Kobe such a hard time.
Yep. Because he's like, you're a kid, and you're coming off the bench, and you are really good.
And you're taking my friend's spot.
That's true.
So they beat the Blazers in the 4 games, and then the semifinals, they end up losing in the Malone zone.
Yep, to the Jazz.
And this is when things are getting frosty between him and Coach Del Harris, things are not good. Things are not looking up in that relationship.
Yeah, and yes, because like you said earlier, he has problems with older men in authority positions.
Yeah, and not even men of their time, just guys trying to coach a basketball team.
Yeah, seriously.
So 97, 98, he shoots a career high, almost 39% from three-point range, and makes the All-Star team. This makes the All-Star team. In the 90s, if you made the All-Star team in the NBA at least once, you're a pretty damn incredible player.
Exactly.
Averages almost 14 and 7 a game as far as points and assists. And this Lakers team this is when you saw them kind of starting to get over the hump.
Yeah, I was going to say, Shaq is really dominating. Kobe is starting.
Yeah, it's like before you see them morph into a Death Star.
Yes, and Nick is really one of the best point guards out there.
Yeah. So first round they beat the Blazers in 4. Mm-hmm. Then they beat the Sonics in 5 in the semifinals, and then they go to the Western Conference Finals and play
the Jazz again.
Not a good series for LA.
I was just going to say, so they really get...
Sometimes you don't come back when you go to the Malone zone.
That's true.
That's true.
That's very true. They get dominated in the first 3 games.
I mean, it's pretty much an ass blasting. Mm-hmm. Game 4, I don't know if you read this story before Game 4.
Well, when he does the...
Yeah. So they're in the tunnel at the Great Western Forum, and they're back in the hallway. They're going to do a team chant before they run out.
Well, they always do the same one. That's the one thing. So it's always 1, 2, 3 Lakers. Him as the point guard would start it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So this chant was a little bit different from Nick, because the first 3 games were very demoralizing. Like, it was like, okay, well, Utah's going to repeat, and they're going to go back to the finals.
Yep.
But you need people. The world needs a clown sometimes, Chris. And I think he was just trying to bring levity.
I do think he was like literally being like, "Hey guys, like let's calm down. Let's like not take it seriously, but like still like be like, all right, come on."
To me, and what I've read also from other people, there's no malice behind it.
No,
there's no like negativity. It's just like, loosen the fuck up, guys.
Which is weird.
Happen.
Shaq is a very like funny kind of guy, but I felt like it was just in the time it was wrong. So he goes in to do his thing, and he goes 1, 2, 3, Cancun.
And that's the joke now. This is where it stems from when you see like
teams
Charles
that
Barkley
get eliminated do that. And it's really pissed Shaq off. It really
pissed Kobe off a lot.
Really pissed Kobe off. And then it got back to West, and he was furious. But my thing was, you can't understand that joke. Like it's,
And what Van Exel said was really only a few people heard him, and the ones who did laughed.
Yeah.
Like, I think part of it was, and what Van Exel talks about, I actually believe him regarding this. He said, I was traded before the season was even over. Mm-hmm. I was out the door. They just needed they needed something to justify to the media why they're getting rid of me, and getting rid of me for not commiserate value.
Yes.
Because you can't get him in an exchange. There's just no way.
There's nobody,
There's no one that's going to trade away someone of his level to Los Angeles and get him back. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So his quote was, "It definitely wasn't that. I was traded in the middle of the season. I knew I was gone way before June, but they had to put their hat on something. Somebody had to be the scapegoat. And I think that, plus the Del Harris issues and the infusion of new players in the backcourt, like a Kobe and a Derek Fisher, as we see down the road, this is what caused them to trade him 9 days after the season ended."
Yep.
June 24th, 1998, he is traded for Tony Battie and the draft rights to Tyronn Lue to the Denver Nuggets.
Well, and just to justify what he says, those trades don't come together without being like set up a little bit 9 days after the season.
So West was even, saw a video of him saying, this was addition by subtraction.
Yep.
We were not going to get a better player. And at that time, and this is how you know that they were so pissed off at him. They didn't ship him to the Eastern Conference.
I was just going to say, the Nuggets.
They didn't send him to a contending team. I was living in Denver at this time, and they were the worst, by far the worst NBA franchise. not even close. This was a death sentence. This was meant to be like, fuck you, Nick Van Exel.
No, seriously, because like you were saying, they didn't get the same value. They didn't get what they should have. I mean, maybe not what they should have gotten, but they literally were like, go ahead. You're in the dregs of the league.
And you know what? You know why they did that too? They did it to stick the knife in because they knew that they would be competing for years and years, and they did it so he wouldn't even have a chance. Like, they wouldn't have traded him to fucking Portland.
Yeah,
They wouldn't
exactly.
have traded him to Seattle, like somewhere where he could hurt them, which he could have.
Yeah.
Go to Denver. Have fun with Antonio McDyess and getting their asses kicked every night.
Those were those really cool Denver uniforms, though, with the skyline.
Yeah, with the mountains.
Yep.
Yeah. You're going from the Tetris to the skyline.
Yep.
The Tetris City.
Those are probably some of the best Nuggets uniforms.
Yeah, best uniforms, worst teams.
So good.
But you know what? Nick Van Exel is a fucking professional. Mm-hmm. And he shined in Denver for those 3 seasons, despite how awful those teams were.
Yeah, he had career highs. So, like, literally, he was like their only good player.
So career highs in assists in 99-2000 and rebounds per game. March of 2000, they actually signed him to a max contract for $70 million. Over those 3 seasons, almost 17 points a game, 8 assists, 3.3 rebounds. And in April 15th, 2000 and November 1st, 2001 against the Clippers and Bucks, career highs in points of 44 for a game, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Experiences some issues, though, on the home front. June of 2001, his mom was walking home from work, and she was shot 4 times at point-blank range.
Pretty wild.
She was working in an Indianapolis Chrysler plant and was like 2 years away from retire. Almost like a Murtaugh situation in Lethal Weapon, which is terrible. She ended up pulling through, said Nick's presence is what helped her do it. So he's very tight with his mom, from what I had gathered. He starts 2001-2002 with Denver, and he's doing well. I mean, he's lighting it up.
Yeah, doing good.
But since the Nuggets were rebuilding him, they tried to get pieces. So on February 21st, 2002, he's traded with Avery Johnson to the Mavericks, with Rafer Frentz, Tariq Abdul-Wahad for Tim Hardaway, Donnell Harvey, Juwan Howard, Cash, and a 2002 first-round pick. And who's an assistant in Dallas at this time but Del Harris?
Oh, he was?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
He was the one that was like, he had to give the okay on the trade. They're like,
wow.
All right, we're going to make this trade. You could say no.
Wow. And he's like, oh, no, I want him gone.
No. So they kind of repaired their relationship enough to, get along.
And this is when he goes to the Mavs, this is when he starts to get a lesser role.
He's that instant offense off the bench.
Yes.
That you like.
He literally is the 6th man.
He's the 6th man. He can play. I mean, he's your backup point guard. He's backing up Steve Nash, but he can also, put, if you have a 3-guard lineup.
Yes.
Outside shot.
Rotate. Yep. Also, I want to bring this up. He has some of the best 360 shots you will ever see in the NBA.
Right.
It is if you look up his highlights, it is so much fun.
He's such a fun player.
He really is.
It's just a shame and these issues not necessarily his fault. This people skills, but
Yep.
In 72 games, career high with 18.4 points, 6.6 assists, and 3.5 rebounds. They sweep the Timberwolves in the first round of the playoffs, but then they lose to the Kings in the semifinals in 5 games. In 8 of those games, he had 11.1 points a game and 3.9 assists. So if that's your 6th man, you're doing pretty good. Granted, the team's running through Nash and Dirk, but
in 2 of the games, he scores 36 and 40.
That was the next year.
Oh, that's the next year.
That's the next year. So 2002.
Because that's 2003.
Yeah,
you're right.
So 2002, 2003. Even though he's averaging just under 28 minutes a game, he still averaged at 12.5 and 4.3 assists.
That's what I mean. He literally is the offense on the second team, whatever you want to call.
These Mavs teams, I disliked them at the time, as a Spurs fan. But God, were they just so much fun to watch on offense? Like, oh my God. They won 60 games, but they were only a 3 seed that year. Like, Jesus Christ.
That was when the West was the West.
Yeah, it was when, you had to win like 64 to come out to the 1 seed. Beginning of the Sacramento series. So they beat Portland. They survived Portland in 7 in the first round. Game 2, he scores 36. And this is also this was the end of those Kings teams that Donaghy fucked over. Weber is lost
Weber's
for the
gone.
playoffs in that game. And then in game 3, career playoff high, 40 points in the 141-137 double overtime win. They finish him off in 7. They end up losing in the conference finals to San Antonio in 6. But like, this is when the Mavericks finally turn that corner as a franchise. That summer, though, he doesn't stay with them.
No.
Traded to Golden State with Evan Eschmeyer, Avery Johnson again, Popeye Jones, and Antoine Rigaudot for Danny Fortson, Anton Jameson, Chris Mills, U of A guy, and Jerry Welsh, but only plays in 39 games for the Warriors.
This is when he has a knee injury, he has an elbow injury, so this is when I feel like age starts to kind of come into factor. Playing 39 games, it's not great.
No, and he's just now being shuttled around the league. The next season, he's with Portland.
Plays 53.
Yeah, he's the following summer. He's waived and then signs with the Spurs, basically in a ring chase in 05.
When he signed with the Spurs, he just goes, this is going to be my last season. I'm going to be the backup point guard, but like, don't expect what you got from Dallas. You know, that kind of stuff.
Just like, I'm a member of his team and I can contribute, but like, if you think I'm going to be an all-star.
Exactly.
Then, they lost, ended up losing to Dallas in 7 games that year in the playoffs, which probably had to sting a little bit. But since then, he's been coaching.
I want to say this because I feel like in the next couple of years, you're going to see him as a head coach.
Oh my God.
Unless he doesn't want it. Because
I want to see him hip check a ref, though.
Oh my God, I want that.
But he's been. It's not like he's coaching like Division III basketball since 2009. He has moved up the coaching ranks.
So he starts at Texas Southern. We all start at Texas Southern.
We all start at Trinity Valley Community College, and
But as an assistant, I feel like they saw that how good he was with players. Hawks immediately go and pick him up, and they're just like, "You should be our player development coach." And it was like, "Yeah, that's perfect." He did it for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And but we could see him head coaching an NBA team.
Yes, because then he becomes the Bucks assistant, then the Grizzlies, and then the Mavs. So, like, he's literally been assistant coach.
Yeah, the Hawks did, too, in there.
Yes. Oh, he comes back to the Hawks.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But that's what I mean is we've literally seen him assistant coach 4 different NBA teams, and it's like that thing at some point where I bet some franchise is going to be like, let's see what Nick has to do for our head coach.
Let's get weird with it right now.
Yeah, let's get weird with it.
1, 2, 3, Cancun.
I don't know how much time I got left on this earth, and I'm going to get real weird with it.
But Nick Van Exel, I did want to add his son. In 2013,
bit of a problem,
bit of a tragedy. Murdered one of his friends.
Yeah, they went on a robbery spree, and he murdered him to keep it quiet, essentially, and it didn't work, which is it's
I guess
extremely
crime
sad.
Skips a generation.
Yeah,
but it's terrible.
It really is, because obviously he comes from, like Nick has a ton of money, all that kind of shit, where you're just like, oh yeah, sometimes people just break bad, you know.
But you know what? The crazy thing is people like Bob Huggins, people who are like the closest to him, like his mom and like close circle of friends, they know what type of good person that he is. He just doesn't show that because burned so many times during his youth.
Exactly.
But the fact that he made it to where he has made it is nothing short of incredible, and one of the better point guards of the 1990s.
Yes, I have to agree with that. It's kind of sad, some of the reasons why he was traded kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same point, you're just like, he had an amazing career.
Yeah, 32 credits. Who knows what happens if he doesn't hit those 32 credits?
Yeah, who knows? That you're so right. And look for him in the future to be a head coach.
Awesome.